All right, guys, it's part two. Let's continue on. So right here, he's getting the swing arm ready. So grease is your best friend in this instance. He's putting some grease where the pivot bearings actually go. You can see right here, he's getting them tapped in with a rubber mallet. We have our tolerance, about a 1/1000 press fit on each side. So now he's gonna use a socket and an extension just to tap it in where it needs to go. He's adding more grease, of course, getting that thing ready. He's trying to do this in terms of if you guys were doing this at home without a press, you can use a press to install these. It's the better way to do it. I told him to do this like he was doing it out of his home garage. Putting on the front chain block. He's getting that thing tightened up. It's just a simple pinch bolt. All right, so he's just explaining the different adjustments on the jack shaft adjuster. So what he's doing is he's installing these and he's actually setting them equal on each side. He's just getting this thing staged and ready to more or less put the jack shaft in. We've got the jack shaft assembly right here. So you're actually going to put the large spacer on the inside and the smaller spacer towards the outside of the swing arm. That's going to get you guys correct chain alignment. And just make sure when you guys put these together, always check your chain alignment. Make sure you have that thing set up right. If there's any other questions, I do have another video that goes over how to adjust these. Again, grease is your best friend, so let's get your chain adjuster bolts installed. Make sure you've got some grease on them on each side. They're a little tricky to fit in there with the bigger nuts, so you want to have that thing all the way down and then put your 10 mil head all the way bottomed, so you're starting at the front position. So now it's time for the rear hub. So he's going to go ahead and get the sprocket adapter set up. He's got the little bit of grease on the taper of the bolts, and then he's actually putting Loctite on the threads of the bolts. This allows you to torque it properly. This is one thing that can come loose if you don't do this properly. So he's going to go ahead and cinch these down in a crisscross pattern. He's using an impact to bottom them. He's going to go back and actually hand tighten these after. When you're assembling bikes all day, you don't want to do every single bolt by hand. Your hand would literally fall off. That's why you guys see a lot of electric tools in the videos. So he's got those things torqued. He's going to get the sprocket on here now. So this is the same setup as OEM. You're just going to use the sprocket bolts with the locking nuts. So he's just taking his time, getting everything set up. He's going to go around and, again, torque these in a crisscross pattern. So first he's going to take an impact. He's going to snug them down, crisscross pattern. He's going to make sure the nut is bottomed. Then he's going to go back with a regular ratchet wrench, and he's going to hand torque all of these. This is an important step in the end. You want to make sure you do this because they can loosen up. You can do this with or without the wheel on. He's doing it first before inserting the hub into the wheel assembly. All right, so there's the rotor adapter. This is actually the non-ABS rotor adapter. So the one that you guys are going to have for your ABS models has an additional bracket for the sensor. Now the sensor, which is that disc with all the little holes in it, that's going to go and get bolted right back to your rotor adapter. I'll have that in the next couple of clips. So now he's inserting the wheel. He's getting that thing on there. He's going to torque the lug nuts with the impact again. I think that little snap-on impact is actually his best friend in the shop. So there's the CRF300L brake disc. Again, we're upgrading the rear brakes to the CRF450 caliper. Just getting that all torqued up. All right, guys, so as Alex crawls into the picture here, he's gonna go ahead and lift the shock, get the swing arm inserted. Just go slow. Put some tape on that swing arm if you think you're gonna scratch it. Just be real careful when you install these. He was super careful. He's already got some grease in that pivot bolt. He's sliding it in. You can see it's going in just by hand. He's not pounding on it. He's just being super careful. And right there, he's tapping the linkage bolt in. So he's getting that in. He's putting the nut on right here. That bolt can be a little bit tight because there is powder coat on the hole. You can clean that powder coat up or just very carefully insert it through. So now it's time to put the mud flap on. And now he's getting the wheel back. So now he's getting the wheel into position. So now he's explaining about how you're not using this brake caliper, and here's the new one. And guys, Alex did a really good job. He actually had his own voiceover in this footage, but the shop is so loud in the background, it just made sense to redo it for you guys so you can hear everything. So now he's gonna pop the original caliper off. He's gonna drain the brake fluid into a pan. So So he's just taking his time getting that thing so it's not making a mess. You don't want to get any brake fluid on your fresh powder coat. Bouncing around again, going to the front sprocket. So we're going to change the sprocket out on this. We're going to go to a 13. You can run OEM or you can run 13, but we like changing the gearing a little bit just to make the bike have a little bit more pep. He's just snugging that down. So here's the jack shaft chain. He's getting that thing installed. This is a little bracket that actually adjusts how far your kickstand goes. So he kind of skipped over that in the video. I can show you guys a couple more pictures of how that actually goes, but more or less it just stops how far your kickstand extends back to hit the swing arm. So now he's jumping ahead, he's going to the exhaust, getting the spacers installed so the can is kicked over. You guys can see he's just putting the shield back on, putting the side panel back in. Take your time with this stuff. It can be a little bit of a challenge, but you guys can see the gap right there. So it's kicked over to clear the tire as much as possible. There are the axle blocks that we supply. So you're gonna stick one of them on the axle first. Then you're gonna have the longer, wider wheel spacer. That's gonna go on the sprocket side. The short one's gonna go on the other side. So you guys can actually see in that clip, he had the rotor adapter swapped out to the correct one. All right, so he's already got his spacers in. He's gonna slide that axle on. And again, make sure your chain adjuster is all the way forward. Make sure you do have the axle block on the correct side. It's got the CRF caliper lined up. It's in its groove. He's just saying to check the gap on the pads, make sure everything looks right, make sure you got everything aligned. So we're gonna actually install a spacer on the outside of the brake stay that is a supplied shim. It gets the alignment correct on the brake disc and on the brake caliper. Back to the front end. All right guys, so he's gonna get this headlight finished up here. Again, we had the offset bracket on lower triple clamp, so he's got that thing bolted on there. You can see the spacers that were in the last video. So everything lines back up. It gets your headlight sitting where it needs to sit so that it's lined up with your speedometer correctly. So now he's just snugging it from the side. All right guys, back to the rear tire. So you guys can see the rotor adapter with that sensor plate on there. And that's actually a pickup for this sensor. So we actually include on the ABS models this extra little bracket. It's gonna hold your sensor, it's gonna hang there, it's gonna put your sensor in the correct location, and it's actually gonna pick up signal right off that rear rotor adapter. So you can see how he's just kind of taking his time getting that routed. Make sure the line has enough slack in it, and just pay attention to how close it is to that sensor. Again guys, this is the correct rotor adapter in the video for the ABS model. You can see how it's bolted on, offset of the brake disc bolts. So now he's just showing you guys the stock foot pegs. He's gonna go ahead and pull these pins out and get our wider one on there. If you guys like wider pegs, we do have these available for all the big wheel kits. They're not 100% necessary, but they sure do give you a lot more of a platform to stand on when you're riding. So OEM spring, OEM pivot. It's gonna reuse all the OEM hardware. This bike is brand new, so no reason to grab new stuff. Just taking his time getting that cotter key bent over. Looking good, looking good. Coming together. We're getting there, guys. Bear with me. Making sure it pivots. All right, back to the jack shaft. So he's got the master link installed. He's got it adjusted. He's checking the play. There are more adjustments, so you can actually adjust this so it's tighter. I recommend leaving a little bit of slack. Don't over tighten these. You're gonna overheat your sprocket. So he's actually gonna tighten this up. He used a plastic wedge to slide it out. He got it moved back 1 tooth. He's going to do the same exact thing on the inside and set where he wants it to be. So now he's torquing it up. So he's going to reuse the stock chain in the back. He's just going to cut it down. So right now he's sizing it up. He's getting it installed where it needs to be. He's going to mark where he wants to cut it. And again, guys, you're starting in the forward position. Make sure your axle is all the way forward when you measure this chain. You do not want to have that thing in the middle when you're cutting your chain. So get that axle as far forward as possible. So now he's going to pull it back off, cut it. He's already got it installed again. Inserting a new master link, getting that thing ready to go. It's also removable in the future now. So now he's showing the chain adjusters where he has them starting. So now he's going to take his time and just snug this up. And again, guys, this chain does not have any real effect with the suspension. It's kind of just on its own on a solid outer swing arm. So get this thing a little bit tighter than you would normally do on a normal bike. Insert a rag and then torque your axle nut. That's going to actually apply forward tension on the wheel. It's going to make sure your axle is all the way forward when you're torquing your axle nut. Just make sure it's tight up against the front adjuster. So now he's putting on the chain guard. He's got 3 6mm bolts with an 8mm head. Looking good. This bike is coming together. So now it's time to bleed the brakes. All right, we got a couple more spacers for you guys. So as you've probably noticed on your kit, your triple clamp is bumping into your coolant reservoir. So we're simply just going to space that whole deal over. He's going to pull the shroud. He's going to go in here. He's going to take the OEM bolts out. We're going to add some spacers on the inside. Get that coolant bottle kicked out. And at the same time, we're actually going to widen the shroud out a little bit. So the same exact offset we put on the coolant reservoir, we're going to do the same thing on the shroud. So it actually gives the bike a cooler look. It allows it to clear the triple clamps and the forks a little bit better. And overall just allows for that correct clearance. And it's still just barely touching, but you're not going to be riding this thing at full lock. If you are, I don't think you're going very far on your bike. If you fall, it's not going to hit it. It's going to clear it. So now he's just torquing this back up with an additional spacer. Now we can't just do that on one side. We got to make sure this bike is uniform on each side. So he's going to insert a spacer on the opposite side. There it is, looking good. Bike has a little bit of a fatter look, kind of matches the tires. And there she is, guys. It's a sick looking bike. Definitely one of our favorites. One of our most popular kits that we've been selling. So guys, we have kits for the non-ABS, we have kits for the ABS, and we actually have kits for the rally coming. So stay tuned, check out bbcbigwheels.com if you guys like big wheels, and definitely subscribe to this channel for some more how-to videos. I'll see you guys in the next one.